Today's first presentation is from somebody who belongs to the European Union, and I am sure everybody here is familiar with the tremendous cooperation that has extended to all Pakistani industries from European Union, and particularly the textile industry. Ms. Anne Marchal joined the delegation of the European Union to Pakistan as Deputy Head of Mission in October 2016. She is a South Asia hand, having served several times in the region, including most recently as Head of Political Affairs Section in the delegation of the European Union to India and Bhutan, 2012 to 2016. Having joined the EU institutions in 1998, she has worked in the European Commission Education and Culture Directorate Journal on Vocational Training as well. Today, Ms. Anne is going to talk about market opportunities for the Pakistani textile and clothing sector in the European Union.
Let me start. And first of all, I would like to recognize and thank Textile International for organizing this event. And I would say that it's also a great opportunity for me to appraise the audience about the opportunity for the market opportunity for the textile and clothing sector to the EU. It's, as it has been repeated time and again yesterday, it's the sector which enjoys the biggest benefit from the EU trade concessions awarded under the GSP+. I will have the opportunity to discuss that further in the talk. Let me say a few words about the EU in Pakistan, or the EU-Pakistan relations, in the sense that they have been embedded in a cooperation agreement which dates back from 2004 and which has been supplemented this year by the signature of a strategic engagement plan. This new strategic engagement plan covers, on a more political way, the same wide areas of cooperation that we had under the cooperation and partnership agreement. So we go from political issues to economic issues and more cooperation issues, as well as, for instance, science and technology, higher education, and you name it. Actually, there is no limit to areas where the EU can cooperate with Pakistan. But let's go back to the issue. The core issue of this talk today, it's about the GSP+. And here in Pakistan, people and the business community is very well aware of its benefits. In 2017, the business community even organized a Thank EU event to mark the appreciation for getting this benefit. As we were talking about the textile sector, you all in the industry are very well aware that it's the sector that gets a lion's share of the benefit. But it's a sector which can be also labor intensive and technology driven. And that's an opportunity for me to talk also about the labor side of it. And the first thing is to look at basic data of the textile and garment sector. And you will see that in Pakistan, the export, or at least the export to the EU of products, are actually products which are not labor intensive. It's basically fabrics. And I think that now we can look at this first slide a little bit in detail. I'm talking to specialists, so maybe I don't need to go too much into the breakdown, but I've chosen to go into the code 61 and 62, where the value addition is required, like men's shirts or apparel and clothing. And you can see that regional competitors like Bangladesh, India, and Sri Lanka are producing and exporting much more under these two chapters than Pakistan, which is very strong in chapter 63, which is basically bed linen, terry towel, and so on and so forth. So my point here, and I will come back during the talk about this issue, is that maybe Pakistan should look into moving to more labor-intensive sectors, which will also be employment generating. Some speaker yesterday mentioned about the youth birth, and it means that you have so many hands who need jobs in this country. So maybe let's put one and one together. There were slides also mentioning about Pakistan having the whole value chain, but I think that the more labor-intensive part of the chain might not be exploited enough. Let me go back to issues of labor. And there was an independent research interpreting the recently held labor source survey by the government of Pakistan, made by the Center for Labor Research. And the publication, which is titled The Verdict, State of Labor Rights in Pakistan After GSP Plus, which was published in June this year, observed that in 2018, Pakistan garment sector employed 30.11% of the total industrial sector workforce in the country, which is about 14.64 million people. When compared with the labor force survey of 2014-15, the absolute employment in the textile sector remained stagnant, implying a very small number of jobs have been created in the country over these years. It has also been noted that men account for close to 60% or 2.6 million workers of the total group of garment workers. So another observation, and that's probably why it's not surprising that this event is held in Lahore, is that actually most of the garment sector jobs are actually created in Punjab as well as in Sindh. Labor being the most vulnerable, the most important factor in the production is also a vulnerable aspect. The condition of female workers in particular is also not very good. And this is true for all the sectors about where women are employed, being food exports or garments or other manufacturing sectors. The World Bank recently published a study called about women in business and the law. It was released this year. And this report acknowledged the decade 2009-19 as the decade of reforms. And it noticed that legislative measures to accommodate women in the South Asian region were few in numbers, but it acknowledged also that laws pertaining to harassment at the workplace have been put in place. I would like to quote a sentence from this report, which has a South Asian coverage. The fewest reform, 18, occurred in South Asia. However, South Asia has also the highest percentage of reforming economies at 88%. 6 economies in South Asia reform in starting a job by introducing laws on workplace sexual harassment: Afghanistan, Bangladesh, India, Maldives, Nepal, and Pakistan. Let me now emphasize that creating safer work environment is only one aspect regarding to women employment. To further women economic empowerment, we need to create the conditions to help entrepreneurial women to start their own business and become self-reliant. Women owning their business can have a huge impact and a positive effect to the society as a result in quicker alleviation in poverty. The challenge is there, as I was mentioning, for the whole South Asia. Let me go back to the GSP and relate this issue of women employment to that too. GSP is indeed an innovative scheme. If Pakistan continues to take advantage of the greater market access to the EU and implement the 27 Convention, and let me quickly remind them that this convention covered human rights, good governance, as well as environment, Pakistan will not only bring the benefits in the form of economic growth, but it also would help improve the rights of a citizen. And these two aspects are mutually reinforcing. Compliance with the conventions will generate better economic opportunities and vice versa. So now let's move to the second slide. And that, I think, speaks by itself. You can see that in the past 10 years, Pakistan textile export to the EU have increased. And since 2012, it's important to remind that Pakistan also had a preferential market access under a flood instrument. And then it paved the way for the GSP Plus as from 2014. But you can see that exports have continued to increase further from 2014 onwards. But also look at the curve of other countries. I would say that Pakistan increased, but stays relatively at the same level in the last 4 years. The same for India, more or less the same for Sri Lanka. But basically, the most significant benefit belongs to Bangladesh. And Bangladesh, being a country benefiting from ABA, we shouldn't forget that also. So we can move to a third slide, which is also a graphic way to show the benefit before and after the implementation of GSP. And if you look at the fourth series of column there, you see the immediate benefit for Pakistan. It's a big jump. But since these days, you will see in a further slide that actually the momentum has been lost. So these statistics shows that export to the EU have considerably increased in the 4 years of the GSP. The cumulative increase actually has been 51%. And so in terms of figures, we moved from about 4.5 billion euro to 6.8 billion euro. So indeed, people can say that it is a boost. The only important thing also to mention here is that Pakistan is doing very well in using the GSP preference. It's up to 95% of the exports which are covered by the scheme. But at the same time, you better than me would know that most of the exports are actually made from the textile and clothing, up to 70%. And so now, a last slide, which is about the global EU-Pakistan trade figures. And then I think I don't need to say much. Just look at the figures, and you see the curve. The total curve is going down. Pakistan export to the EU, which is present here as EU import, are really plateauing, while the EU export to Pakistan are slightly decreasing. So it shows that something needs to be done now. Nobody should be complacent. You have an opportunity, and that's why I wanted to make the point that maybe try to look more at labor-intensive part of productions, which would be a win-win benefit for both the sector but also employment. So there is potential here, and we should not miss it. But like many things, it's a two-way traffic, and the GSP Plus, as I was already mentioning also yesterday, it comes with some conditions or some obligations. And that's maybe the part people don't really want to hear about, but I would like to stress that in front of this interested audience. So by the regulation, the EU is obliged to submit a report to the European Parliament and the Council on the functioning of the GSP scheme, and this report has to be submitted every 2 years. It has to detail the beneficiary countries' ratification, reporting, as well as effective implementation of the relevant conventions. The first such report was presented in January 2016, which delivered, and that's very much the case for Pakistan, a balanced view on the human rights and labor rights, as well as environment and government issues. The second report, submitted in January 2018, was a mixed one. And why so? Because it stated that legislative developments took place, but it could not reflect what has been done to really enforce these conventions. So the process of drafting the third report, which will be submitted in January 2020, has started. And in the coming months, Pakistan will receive from our colleagues dealing with the GSP Plus a monitoring mission. And that will be very, very critical for Pakistan to be able to convince that monitoring mission so that the final touch to the report is as accurate as possible. But progress has to be made. There are a few low-hanging fruits. The last monitoring mission came with a list of 10 priorities. They should have been achieved by June this year. Unfortunately, as far as I know, very little could be accounted for. So one has to really gear up and make sure that the obligations are fulfilled. So again, in terms of trade aspect, there were benefits. But regarding this area of implementation of the convention, we really need to make an effort. So in the area of human rights, which is the most part of these 27 conventions, Pakistan has submitted outstanding reports to most of the UN bodies. Pakistan has also established a treaty implementation cell. It has also established the National Commission on Human Rights. It adopted a national plan of action on human rights and put in place a new legislation on human rights. All these measures are promising and reflect the stated intentions of the government to implement these conventions pertaining to human rights. If implementation of this measure is followed without disruption, the situation of human rights will also improve in this country. But looking at the progress, one might also argue that the glass is half full, and that may be seen positively. But it's also an indication that more needs to be done in the area of justice, women's rights, children's rights, freedom of religion and belief, freedom of expression, as well as the registration of NGOs. It is acknowledged that not all these issues can be resolved at once, but the EU has highlighted the need for a continued, tangible improvement over the 10-year lifespan of the GSP+, including with the advent of 2024. And in order to meet these challenges and others in the areas of labor rights, climate change and good governance, we must all work closely together. The principal responsibility lies with the government of Pakistan. However, the government needs the strong support from the civil society to monitor this human rights situation and to suggest solutions that could help her with implementation. The EU also stands ready to do our part, and we had prepared an exclusive and exhaustive human rights program with the support of the government. This program is embedded with the Ministry of Human Rights, and it was dotted with 10 million euro. And we hope that this program can help Pakistan to deliver on this obligation as required by the GSP+. This axis between trade and rights is unique, and it highlights the importance that the EU attached to value agenda via trade. I must say that it's also an opportunity to pass a very important message regarding how human rights-based approach can benefit trade via improved market access for Pakistan. Equally important is the fair trade. Fair trade will enable Pakistan to get advantage of globalization, integrating its economy via increased investment. Fair trade is about more than just paying a fair wage. It means that trading partnerships are based on reciprocal benefits and mutual respect, that price paid for a producer reflects the work of that labor does, that producer shares the decision-making power in favor of the consumer, that national health, safety, and wage laws are enforced without discriminating gender, including in overtime payments, and that products are environmentally sustainable and conserve national resource. And I must say I was very encouraged by the presentations made yesterday about sustainable textile, and I want to commend you and hope that others in the sector will follow suit. And I must also appreciate the effort of the Ministry of Commerce and its treaty implementation cell, which has shown strong commitment to the GSP Plus and its implementation since it was awarded. We will continue to rely on the institution to bring the work forward in this area in the future. So, as I'm about to conclude this presentation, I would also like to inform you about what the European Union has launched recently and which is called the European Economic Diplomacy Initiative, or in short, EED. The EED adjoins the EU member states present in any third country to work together to spread the benefit of economic diplomacy in that society. This may include investment in human capital, as the EU is already a major donor to the Skill Development Programme and the TVET. In simple terms, let me add the following points. The EU initiative under the EED should be demand-driven and ensure ownership by business intermediary organization, serve to fill the gaps or reinforce existing support services and not duplicate or create new structures which compete with the already existing structure. Support more training activities, especially in Europe. Consider internationalization as a long-term process and avoid standalone or one-off missions without proper presentation and follow-up for the businesses, and increase opportunities for SMEs in the EU and elsewhere to collaborate for business endeavors. And I'm happy to also notice that yesterday there was a strong point made about SMEs in Pakistan. We in Europe, we say often that the SMEs are the backbone in the economy, and I'm sure there are some measures that could be replicated here. Having said this, I would like to applaud the strong involvement of the business community in this international conference, and I'm also pleased to see the positive response of the organizer to include women's voice in this year's conference. I would like also to thank, behind the scene, the UN Women for having shared a network of contacts with the organizer. Small global initiatives like the She Trade at international level can be transformed into She Works or She Exports in the context of Pakistan. I hope my suggestions will be duly followed by the organizer in the next conference. The EU delegation looks forward to cooperate closely with you all in this file, also in the future for the benefit of the people of Pakistan. So thank you very much for your attention.